I've got an insane XRP update for you. We're going to cover so many different things here. David Schwartz talking about the Federal Reserve. We have Ripple working with 500 organizations. We have talks about Ripple being used by governments around the world. We're going to talk about tokenization, stablecoins, expertise. We're going to talk about all of this stuff, as well as Dilip Rao here talking about the global head of innovation at Ripple. He's going to be, this is back in 2016. There's a great clip that I want you to hear because it's very important. There's just so much in this video. So stick with me through this whole thing. Let's go ahead and learn some stuff.
So, you know, Ripple believes in utility. So there are a lot of crypto players out there who frankly won't last long. And
very true.
It scares a lot of people in logistics, I think, if they start to dabble in that.
Absolutely. It scares a lot of us. So what Ripple has always done is taken that baseline technology, and we've said from the very start, from the outset, that every technology needs a use case. And for us, the very clear use case is payments, because the XRP ledger, which is an open source public blockchain, was purpose-built for payments, for speed of transaction. So we absolutely see it. You know, over 500 organizations are working with us today, and many of them are using XRP at the heart as a bridge currency. So that is already happening, and we see much more coming.
Imagine that, right? You have Ripple working with 500 organizations, like your Visas, your MasterCards, your Amexes. Basically, any card you have in your wallet, they have a partnership with, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to use XRP to facilitate all of those payments, but they have the option to, and that's what's really powerful, right? If you look around the crypto space, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't have an actual use case. Payments, tokenization, stablecoins, those are really the biggest use cases in crypto right now. This was from Bond Crypt, or Bond CRP, XRP, excuse me. Let me go ahead and play this. This is actually, let me play this and we'll talk about it.
And you can't give 7 billion people Bitcoin accounts because it's just too slow. But today,
very true. Bitcoin is too slow.
Not a distributed ledger that's global. That will not work. And it's because of the whole nature of the concept of Bitcoin, which is like gold, which is a thing that you have to mine, and you have to track it from point to point to point. And supposedly you have to keep track of it, and all these computers, it already takes as much computing power to do one transaction or it takes as much electricity as a household uses in a day. And this is for a very small portion of the money supply. But
this guy wants to interrupt.
The whole cryptography idea is great, and what has come off of blockchain is great. But the first generation of this model is not going to work. It's the banks themselves are not looking at blockchain. Well, Satoshi Nakamoto never used the term blockchain, so it's not really clear what a blockchain is. But they looked at blockchain at first, meaning a distributed ledger that was global, and they decided that it was too slow.
What is she talking about here, right? Bitcoin was created in 2009, during this financial crisis, right? Banks, institutions looked at Bitcoin and said, okay, we like the distributed ledger aspect of this, but we cannot use Bitcoin as a form of payment between banks. It's too slow. It's too costly. There's no AML, anti-money laundering. There's no KYC, know your customers. There's no sanctions checks on these Bitcoin transfers. And that's what banks need involved when they send money from bank to bank, right? If a bank sends money to a bank that is under sanctions, that bank not only could face millions of dollars in fines, but they could also face the penalty of jail and other things like that. So having something like XRP, where Ripple's baked in all of these things for their payments, is what banks really want to use.
And so now what they're using is something, well, they're using Ripple.
They're using Ripple.
Which is a series of blockchains.
This guy's like
ledgers, which is what banks do anyway. They clear ledgers within their own bank, and then at the next level they clear them at the level of the Federal Reserve, and at the next level they clear them through the SWIFT system. So this cryptography that they're looking at and using and liking is very efficient. It's good for everybody. It's cheaper. You don't have to have all these middlemen.
Do tell.
But it is not literally a universal distributed ledger, which actually won't work.
All right, how Ripple's crypto solutions can help. You have tokenization of real world assets. We know that is just getting into its infancy. And we do know when we listen to Brad Garlinghouse talking about how much value can get tokenized, brought onto ledgers, he's saying that, 15, 30 trillion. I've seen that numbers as high as $30 trillion by 2030. Personally, I think it could be a lot higher if less places like the US get into regulation. We know the UK, Australia, Japan, these guys are really excited to use distributed ledger technology to move their value from central banks to banks. And Ripple really kind of does go through, they mastered payments. They're getting into carbon credits. They've, getting into tokenization, stable coins. This is all stuff that's really baked into the XRP ledger, and it was really built for the world's payments. And here's Dilip Rao, right? Some of these clips, guys, are old, but if you're new to the space and you haven't seen this, it could be powerful. And this is a great reflection point to just listen up to really what you own here when you own XRP. It really is the financial solution that central banks want to use, right? They want to use this technology, and for the first time in your lifetime, in anybody's lifetime, have you been able to go out and purchase an asset that is going to be used by central banks, right? Obviously gold and silver and these things like that, but you're talking about banks using a distributed ledger technology to move value, tokenize deposits, tokenize securities, and that moves on blockchain on private ledgers. That's what we're trying to do here. And that's really where the real value of XRP is going to come from.
How's that going? And is that cheaper? Is it faster? Is it better? Because banks want somebody else to try it out and say, okay, that works,
yeah.
Now we'll jump in. Actually, back in 2016, we did a project with 12 banks to use XRP between themselves, just as a technical trial. They loved it. It didn't work. They said, okay, instead of having a multiplicity of account relationships that we have to have with each other, 12 banks would have had to have 144 relationships with each other. They just used XRP and moved it between each other and said, this works.
He's saying that banks have to, you know, these 12 banks, in order for them to facilitate all these payments, they would need to go out and have these other connections with 144 other partners to make all of this money flow. Or the 12 banks could use XRP, which they did in this situation, and they loved it, right? They didn't have to go out and use the old rails. They could use crypto to move that value instantly. And that is what we're talking about here. That is really, really the most powerful thing.
So they've already tried that out.
They love it.
And we know that that's the holy grail. But they will take time to get there. And regulators also have to feel comfortable. The volatility has to come down, as I mentioned. Markets have to get deeper. This just takes time.
It just takes time, right? Markets need to get deeper. He's talking about liquidity. You need liquidity to move all of this value. If you're going to try to move $1 trillion in a day, you need to have a lot of value living on that chain to move that type of value. That's what we're talking about. So this is from Bond Crypt again. This is about crypto space. Worldwide XRP's price is artificially too low. I love this. He talks about Bitcoin at the start, but then he gets an XRP.
There's your top 3 cryptocurrency picks.
I think that hasn't reached anywhere near mass adoption yet. 22% of households own Bitcoin. And I think that also has a great advantage from name recognition. Right now, if we go out to the streets and we ask anybody, name one cryptocurrency, and 95% of people will be able to say Bitcoin, right? So when the next Bitcoin bull run happens, I think people will flock to Bitcoin because that's the top of mind. So I think that's going to cause that price to go up. So that's my #1 crypto. 2 is Ethereum. And the reason why I think Ethereum has a lot of potential is because you're able to build on top of that blockchain, DAOs, NFTs, smart contracts. And every time one of those new technologies are built, you have to use Ethereum to transfer those assets. That creates a higher demand for Ethereum, and it creates more use cases for Ethereum. So Ethereum is #2. And I think eventually, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, I think Ethereum will eventually, in the next 5 to 10 years, be the #1 crypto, past Bitcoin. I think Ethereum will be the #1 crypto eventually. And almost in 2015, it was very close to what we call flipping Bitcoin and being #1. But I still think it has the potential to do that. My last one is XRP. We all know about the lawsuits with the SEC. But I think that the price is artificially too low for what the utility and what the potential of it is. That's a great investment opportunity because once those artificial barriers are erased, which I think it will be in the next year and a half, the price could rise to what the true value is. And right now, I think XRP's true value should be between $10 and $15. But I think with the next bull run, we could see $20, $25.
$20, $25 for XRP. I'd love that. I'd still probably wouldn't sell at those prices. I really want to see some stupid prices, right? When you're investing in crypto, right? And I'm not an investment advisor, so don't take anything as I say it as investment advice. I'm just here talking with you, talking story as somebody that doesn't have any of these fancy licenses behind me. But when you're talking about the adoption of blockchain, right? We're still at the very early stages, right? But you want to focus in on what people that are in power. You might not agree with the politics of central banks and select families that control banks and this and that, but you want to look at what people like Christine Lagarde, right? She's the head of the European Bank, but she used to be the head of the BIS, and she is in the know, and she has mentioned XRP and XLM on multiple occasions. And let me just go ahead and play this clip for you. This is Christine Lagarde. She is definitely in the know.
And those who survive, but it will be between those who are cannibalized because they're not seeing it coming and they're not embracing it, and those who self-induce that cannibalization. And I'm using cannibalization on purpose because it's a bit of a striking, horrible word, but it's really what it means. It's you're going to disrupt your business model, you're going to change it, you're going to reduce your cost, you're going to expedite your transactions, and you're going to continue to inspire confidence because you will build that on the basis of an existing backbone, which is your bank and the confidence relationship that you've established with your customers. So that's where I see changes happening now. If you think of Circle and Ripples and all those, that's where they are active and helpful.
Circles and Ripples, right? She's talking about XRP. Christine Lagarde is in the know. This is the asset that I want to own, right? We don't know really what's going to happen in the future, but we know that central banks are testing this technology. Your XRPs, your Quants, your XLMs, your XCCs, those are the assets that I think will still be here 5, 10, even 20 years down the road. Even when we're long and gone, I think these assets are going to have extreme value, and just like anything, it builds over time, okay? Here's another clip from Brad Garlinghouse talking about XRP and Ripple.
For Ripple, we use this digital asset called XRP to settle liquidity needs between banks. So today there's $27 trillion parked at different banks around the world so they can make payments between each other. Our view is you can use a digital asset like XRP to do that in real time. Because XRP has been so efficient, it settles a transaction in about 3 seconds. The vast majority of banks, like 99.9% of banks, actually are paying other banks to make those settlements. So a lot of the banks are very excited about democratizing how these global payments flow.
And let's talk about this, right? Banks are going to want to hold on to and own the asset that they're going to be using to move trillions of dollars. At the end of the day, banks are here to make money, right? And they see crypto as an asset class that they know is coming. And banks either have to get on board or get left behind. And what I mean by that is if you are a bank and you have all of these new great services, right? And you're not offering these services to your customers, and customers want to have instant payment, instant deposit, all of this stuff flowing instantly with low fees, other banks are going to adopt that technology. And if the bank that you're in is not adopting that technology fast enough, that bank might not be a bank years down the line, right? It really is an adoption phase, and the biggest banks in the world that are going to make it through this big shift of crypto are going to be the ones who adopt the technology. And this is actually a cool, interesting clip. This is talking about Nostro Vostro accounts, right? Kind of what Brad Garlinghouse was just talking about, the $27 trillion locked up. That's what banks use to settle money globally. All of this value can be tokenized, brought onto private ledgers. Let me play this.
What's locked away in all these banks around the world right now is trillions upon trillions of dollars.
Trillions.
In the, what is Nostro Vostro account, your account, my account. When XRP goes live and they pull the switch, XRP will release those trillions of dollars. And then all the banks would then would have all that money that accrued over the last 70 years. And the prosperity would be just booming. XRP is the new money system for the next 25 to 50 years.
There you go. Wow.
And what it is doing, it's creating what is known as the liquidity necessary to cover the insurance of transactions. And where it took a week, 3 days, a week, where it takes Bitcoin like 6 to 8 hours, the transaction between banks with XRP is virtually seconds, 2 to 4 seconds. Nothing beats it. And they have others that are creating a liquidity in different venues. There are 3 of them. There's XRP, XLM, and XDC. And they work with one another, but they don't step on each other's toes because they each do something different.
They each do something different, right? That's why having those 3 assets is good. I also got this great clip too here. I've been stealing a lot of stuff from BondCrypt, but thank you, BondCrypt. We're going right with the payment alliances. We're going to FANAN institutions. I think it's financial institutions. We're going to the Federal Reserve and central bankers, and we're really trying to work with some of the top down, get liquidity into the system and get cash in and out of people's hands.
Right, to payment alliances, we're going to financial institutions, we're going to the Federal Reserve and central bankers. We really are trying to work this from the top down.
What cryptocurrency do you own that is working with the Federal Reserve, that is working with the US government, that is working with the UK government, that's working with the government in Japan, right? All over the world. Ripple is there working with those governments, right? All over the Middle East, Africa, Southeast Asia. You're talking about South America, Canada. Ripple has what, like 40 money transfer licenses in the US, which they'll soon cover the whole entire country. This is what we're talking about, mass adoption through XRP.
Get liquidity into the system, get cash in and cash out pathways so that it will be more useful for everyone. It's kind of surprising that we're where we are, that we're being taken seriously by central bankers, that we have banks that are using the Ripple network today to make payments between banks. Surprisingly to me, we've actually been getting an extremely positive response from everything from the Federal Reserve to small and medium-sized banks to payment consortiums. Everybody seems to recognize that the payment system is broken. Yep. We're a long way. Unfortunately, we're a long way from making these systems safe enough for mass consumer direct use.
Right.
If I had to guess, like I would say the fastest would be 2 to 3 years, which is really not that long.
No.
Yeah, technology moves very, very quickly.
Like Bank of America, are they open to Ripple right now? And if they are, or when they are eventually, how can Bank of America use Ripple right now today?
They are surprisingly open. That's another one of the things that really surprised me, because you kind of think of like the existing financial system as perfect for banks and banks not wanting to disrupt a system that works well for them. But actually, banks have huge problems.
Banks have huge problems to solve with liquidity, right? And last but not least, let's just go through this from ISO the GOAT. Gain the trust of financial institutions with groundbreaking technology. Establish partnerships with the largest players globally. Plug into the tech, right? Plug and play into connection to Ripple's real-time cross-border settlement. Ripple has been here for over 10 years, laying down the foundation of what the new financial system is going to be like. If you want to own a piece of that new financial system, XRP is what I believe is going to be used on a massive scale. And that is why I'm a huge believer, and that's why I talk about it so much on this channel. If you made it to the end, please let me know. I do appreciate it. The channel is growing, and I can't thank you enough. I will see you in the next one. Aloha.